Welcome to this week's Reality Check, guys. A relatively sober video today that doesn't necessarily have the happiest of endings, but sometimes those lessons that we can extract from them become valuable to us, so we can fold them into not only our practice, but our day-to-day conduct and behaviours. This is an incident that took place in the UK, and unfortunately it did result in the death of one of the individuals concerned. Let's take a look at this week's Reality Check and see if we can take something of value from a tragic situation. When you watch the video, you see the people come in separately and they're in a very narrow bar in the UK. These are not uncommon. It's a night out in the town, people are socializing, people are doing what they do. I'm not judging anybody for that. I've certainly put a few beverages down myself and I do enjoy a good night out from time to time. Although at my age, that tends to be more like coffee and biscuits these days. In this instance though, you have one group sat at the table doing their socializing, doing their talking, their relaxing, and another group coming in with exactly the same intent in mind. One of the unfortunate byproducts of these environments, though, is roosters in hen houses. Everybody wants to be the big dog in the room. When you look at any self-defense industry video, when you look at posts, when you look at the way people conduct themselves, everybody is very keen to be seen as the alpha, the big dog in the house, the one you don't mess with. This unfortunately can also send off the wrong vibes. When you look at what happens in this video, the circumstances leading up to the engagement, there's not a lot to see. One individual was there and he was stood at the bar with a drink in his hand and he had what we call the sway. The hands were a little swayed out, he's got the sway going on and he's just surveying, looking around the room. A lot of these behaviors are often portraying what we want the world to see us as. Whether they want to see us as heroic or tough, muscular, a man's man, whatever it happens to be. This can be brought on by alcohol, it can be brought on by other intoxicants, and I'm not suggesting this was actually the case in this instance. I'm just saying there is a possibility that the presence of such items can inflate that sense of worth we wish to project. If you're with a group of friends and you're the big one in that group, you tend to project that same image out into the rest of the world because you don't want your friends to see you as something different. The comfort we have with ourselves will often carry itself over to the way we are seen in public and the way we conduct ourselves in public. In this instance, the standing there with the arms splayed and the staring of the eyes and the nodding was seen as a challenge. Now, was it? No, of course it wasn't. He was stood there presenting himself as, hey, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. And someone, in this case, Mr. Shane O'Brien, took it upon himself to answer that challenge. This is where things take a dark turn. If you have an individual that is apparently posturing and they're making consistent eye contact with you, gesticulating and the nods, that's a risk for you and that is a threat for you. And absolutely it should be dealt with. But dealing with it doesn't mean you go and deal with that person. There's door staff, there are bar staff, there are police officers, there are security staff. Hell, you can even leave. There are a million and one ways you can deal with these potential situations without making them go physical. What is it that you need to go physical on? In this case, it was exactly the same sort of thing. He wanted to show he was the big dog in the house. You don't stare at me, you don't hang out with my friends. This was actually the defense he tries to use in court. As you can see, it laughably fell flat, and that's why he was convicted of the murder. What a lot of people don't see, until you watch the video a few times, is how casually, how subtly, and how hidden he removed the weapon. First thing he did was get up and get in the individual's face. If you're feeling threatened by someone, don't get close. What he is mistaking is a threat for a challenge. He saw this as a challenge and he wanted to take up the gauntlet. He went up there and he framed the space. Notice as I get closer, you lose sight of what else I'm doing. By framing that space, he actually cuts off the peripheral vision. He draws the focus in. As he was talking, he went down. He sighted on. He got into the individual's face. And like I just did, the knife was produced. That smoothly and that seamlessly. From there, a single strike, one slash, down. That was all it took to end a man's life. Here's where one has to ask the question, did he mean to do that? I can't answer for sure. My gut feeling is no, he actually didn't. I think he wanted to cut this man, to scar him. I think he wanted to teach him a lesson for posturing, to let him know that you don't mess with this person. And I think that what he did was he mistimed that shot. Now, can I prove that? Absolutely not. But based on his behavior afterwards, he made the cut and he walked out. He didn't see the guy fall. He didn't know what happened to him afterwards. I don't think he even cared. He'd made his point and he was moving on, probably to tell his friends about later on. It was only when he found out that an actual death occurred from this that he fled. Had he wanted the guy to die, I suspect the attack would have been a little more frenzied and he probably would have continued with it rather than a one and done. Unfortunately, within the underworld, unfortunately within the criminal elements in society, they often will send messages like this: a glassing in the face, a cut, a scar, something that every time that person touches, they remember them by. In this case, his desire to be that criminal element, to be that big man, led to the death of someone. After fleeing the country for a few years, he was actually rounded up and he was brought back, and he's serving a life sentence in jail. Not long enough, in my opinion. I'm not trying to say that the person that passed away, Josh Hansen was his name, could have actually taken steps to avoid this situation and it was his fault. What I am saying is, we can look at this and consider how we conduct ourselves, how we carry ourselves. We don't have to be meek, mild and retiring, but we don't have to be chest out roosters either. Carrying yourself with confidence isn't the same as carrying yourself with an air of self-importance or an air of challenge. Most situations that occur in these environments can be avoided simply by being who you are normally and naturally and not letting the rest of the world try to buy into that same self-image. The tragic circumstances that led to this man dying were not his fault. O'Brien made a decision to attack, he made a decision to cut, and unfortunately, his cut was the wrong type of cut. This is what happens when fights go down and they start. They aren't the ones we see in the self-defense videos. They aren't the ones we see in the magazines. They aren't the ones we see in the films where the guys are squaring off 6 feet away, getting ready to go and the punches come in. They're very close in. They're fast. They're unpleasant. And there's a whole ritual that leads up to those. If you aren't including these in your training is not just lacking, it's woefully inadequate. And we all know what happens when we aren't prepared. Thank you for joining us this week, guys. As always, you can find me on Facebook at Aftermath, the Fight After the Fight. You can find me at Havoc Hound on Instagram. And on Twitter, you'll often see me there as Aftermathmatic. I've got to be honest with you, I need to update my Twitter game a bit more. As always, a big thank you to my friends, the Budo Brothers. They produce these videos, they allow me to get this content out to you. And they're the ones that allow me to give you the information and the experiences that I've got over the years. Might I suggest you go to budobrothers.com and check out their website. They have got some of the most tip-top gear you will find. Boxing gloves, boxing pads, and their latest ones, these padded sparring sticks, which you'll actually see on screen right now. They are fantastic for interpersonal training, they are fantastic for sparring, and they're fantastic for preparing yourself to deal with weapon-based conflict. Go check them out and tell them that the Hound sent you. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below. We read them all, even if we don't respond. And I'll see you next time.